Yeah.
It's your boy Young Love, I give him that thing. Pancho leg stand and punchy America. Banyi doll, Pancho leg stand and punchy America. Banyi doll, ban walk on your leg, Kankara water no watching. Oga level leg, gear, wow, leg. Panda with ya, punchy America. Panya doll, no, chingatongo pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu panda gear, what ya be doll venting. Stand and punchy America, Banyi doll, Pancho leg stand and punchy America, Banyi doll, ban walk on your leg, Kankara water no watching, Oga level leg, gear, wow, leg, Panda with ya, punchy America, Panya doll, Chingatongo pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Paku panda gear, what ya be doll venting.
Yeah, thank you so much to all South Sudanese across the globe. Wherever you are tuning in, welcome to Lagos State Media Beyond Boundaries. And in the studio with us is one of our guests, the usual brother, as you all know, one of the prominent activists and CEO of CEPO, Mr. Edmund Yakani. And Mr. Edmund Yakani will talk to South Sudanese and he will analyze the unified graduation forces that will take place tomorrow in Juba, which the preparation is underway and is ongoing currently rather. And he will also explore much or more in terms of the redeployment. And he will also talk about how these unified forces will be a source of joy to South Sudanese and peace and security across the country, including the policemen within Juba city and other major cities in the country. Mr. Edmund Yakani, we are always happy as Lagos State Media to host you, and we will continue doing good things with you. We are willing to host anybody, any South Sudanese who is ready to deliver the certain message to his fellow countrymen and women. To our viewers, whoever is watching us now, I know some of you are yet to join. This is the preparation going on currently in Rajab County, or the training center, and also the John Grant Museum in Juba. And we have seen yesterday President made a visit to the graduation ground, that is John Grant Memorial Museum, rather. He will talk to us much about that. And to remind you once more, our guest is still in the other side of Barakazal. He is currently in Wau, the other far end of Barakazal. And if you hear or maybe experience some shortcomings of internet later on, definitely know that he is in Wau. And he will also brief us about the situation in Awil and also in Wau. So far, he's still there collecting the data in regard to the situation on the other side of the country. Mr. Edmund Yakani, welcome to Lagos State Media, and give us your opening remark before we go to the discussions of the topic at hand. Yeah, I think our guest is still fixing some few things here and there. Yes,
thank you. I'm trying to adjust myself to an area where there's a less noisy. So yeah, thank you. I think my open remarks is that, yeah, my open remarks are tell everybody, wow, Nar, wow, Nur, wow, Mabinum. I mean, wow, on my way back to Juba. And I think the situation in this particular region with the visit to Wow, Awil, and watching Warap from Awil angle and communicating with my colleagues in Warap and now being in Wow, I think the region of Baragazal is now badly affected with the floods. And this I have to make it very clear that for the first time that the statistics of the floods is a bit high compared to the previous incidents of floods, specifically northern Baragazal. Almost all the counties are flooded and big number of people were displaced, schools were destroyed, health centers were destroyed, and I would say access, even roads were destroyed outside Awil. And Awil, of course, is the Awil Center County. So access to Awil East, Awil West, and access to Awil North and South is a bit problematic with the floods. And I quite sure Gogorial East is having the same problem in Warap. And here in Western Baragazal is okay. But of course, with the challenges of the amount of the rain, is also roads access out of Wow is a bit challenging, but we don't see big cases of flooding in this particular site of Western Baragazal state. But of course, in terms of graduation, Western Baragazal is one of the states that is highly motivated with the graduation of the unified forces. So I would like to say, yes, we may hear negative stories, but I think this part of the country where I'm in now is okay, it's peaceful with its challenges that we can mention, being it governance challenges, economical challenges, but the situation for now, and other insecurity challenges, but it's a bit picking up. But also this is a region where there's a quite huge smiles when you look at the ranking of our national team in terms of the basketball. You know, people are so proud that politicians disappoint us, politicians shame us, politicians shape our image of the country bad, but the ball in the hands of our brothers in the basket net shows that South Sudan is a great and was able to be ranked as the top among the nations that were so much stable and peaceful. So the shame goes back to our political leaders and the joy go to our players. And we have been raising calls that at least this time President must call for a national reception for our team, because they have shown the world that South Sudan is not the South Sudan that they know from the political angle. There's a lot of potentiality, a lot of success when the politicians were able to change their attitudes. So politicians failed to make the country great for the last few years, over 10 years, but at least in a period of 2 to 3 years, basketball have made who we are. And now we are known, our flag is known. And even some are asking what's the meaning of your flag. If it wasn't those points of the basketball, nobody will ask, and non-South will ask for the interpretation of the flag. But at least they have made us proud. So I mean, the region where also some of the players comes from this region, so there's a jubilation, something that have united us beyond our tribes and beyond our ethnicity. So yeah, that's my opening remarks, and I hope that we stand behind our basketball team. I wish that we should give them the joy and we should award them hero certificates. They have done a wonderful job and have made us proud. So yeah, that's my opening remarks. We can now.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for that wonderful opening remark. And before we go into deep our topic, allowed us to, on behalf of Lagos State Media, to send out 2 congratulatory messages. Number 1 is to congratulate our team, the basketball team. We congratulated them on our page, of course. And as now we are live, we also need to send this message to our viewers that no matter how the situation seems to be so dark, there must always be that small light. Our basketball team is a candle that has already been lit up within the dark room. And now it will consume the darkness, the light of that basketball team. And South Sudan, within no time, will be among the top nation on earth in terms of basketball and even in terms of football, and as well as athletics, especially those who always run for long meters within a short period of time. It has been known for Kenyans, especially from Kalenjins and Ethiopia. But this time, South Sudan will join them among the top countries. We are always happy and we are grateful for our team. They have shown to the world that indeed South Sudan is a land of Kuch. South Sudan is a land of black, tall, smooth-skinned giant. And we are proud of that. And in fact, they are unifying factor to all of us. So we must be happy. But we also need to appeal to our leadership, as my brother Edmund Yakani put it before. And I hope you will appeal more at the end of this discussion. You will say something to our leadership, because our leadership need to pull up their games, because we cannot continue running business in the darkness, yet our part or our boys are taking us to the light. So we better pull our socks up and do something great for our country. Second congratulatory message is to our guests. To those who are watching, Mr. Edmund Yakani has been nominated as a recipient of the African Professionals Award for his diligent work, dedicated and servant to the people of South Sudan. Thank you so much, and we congratulate you as Lagos State Media, and we'll wait for that day when you will be receiving that prestigious award, and we will celebrate with you. Thank you so much. After this juncture, my fellow countrymen and women, we'll go straight to the topic at hand. And our topic today, thank you, as you have seen, the preparation of unifying forces that will take place tomorrow, their graduation. And this is one of the things our country has been waiting for the last 4 years, since the reception of revitalized peace agreement. And now it has come to pass. So it will receive mixed reaction. We will be congratulating our government for doing such and for implementing it at last. And remember, it was been said more than 3 times that they will be graduated within the next 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks' time. Now this is the 4th 2 weeks' time, and it has come to pass. Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. Kindly, can you give us your perspective about this graduation and unifying forces? What do you think as activists and as South Sudanese who is so much dedicated to see the peaceful and prosperous South Sudan? Now they have already been unified and the graduation will take place tomorrow. What do you see about their graduation? Have they received requisite skill? Have they been trained as National Army and National Police? Or we are merely graduating another disaster that will always pay a legend to their parties and to their leaders of different tribes? Kindly activate your mic, Edmund Yakani, and give us your analysis on the unified forces and their graduation that will take place tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues in Lex Media, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to share with your viewers and with South Sudanese within South Sudan across the globe about the graduation. As you said, this graduation is a long-awaited task of the revitalized peace agreement that is supposed to be delivered immediately after the formation or even before the formation of the government as a pre-transitional exercise. But due to lack of political will and high level of deficit in trust and confidence among our political leaders who signed the revitalized agreement, they were able to delay it for the last 4, actually even I can say 5 years, without doing any task. But now they are taking it up and they want to graduate. As you said, we have seen the preparation images across the country, and we have seen the motivation of our leaders in sending signals, either visiting the graduation sites or visiting the preparation of the graduation sites. And we have seen how much His Excellency President have to visit the grave of our hero and the founding father of the nation, late Dr. John Garang grave prior to graduation, and declare a public holiday tomorrow after being to the grave. So you can see the motivation behind this task of graduation of the unified forces, which are mainly the military of all the parties, the police units of all the parties, and the national security of all the parties, and then the other civil defense units like prison service, fire brigades, wildlife, they all be graduated. So we have seen that. Obviously, there's a key question. What is the motivation now? And why wasn't this motivation there in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years? To in terms of a standard, if they're going to be graduated, have they met the standard as prescribed by the provision of the revitalized agreement in chapter 2, in various articles of chapter 2, as a chapter that focuses on transitional security arrangements? And then 3, what does this mean for political will, motivation, and the faith of having a successful transitional period from now until when we'll end up electing our leaders with our votes and making sure that we exercise our democratic right of making a choice for our leaders? So those are key critical questions that need to be answered. And I'm going to dwell around them besides also the question you have asked. One, to your viewers, what is the motivation now? The motivation now is that the leaders have reached to the end peak of their lies and the empty promises that they have been making previously, after 1 week, after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, after 4 weeks. Then later on, sooner, and for take us this period. So they don't have any more excuse now in order not to deliver the revitalized peace agreement. But also the motivation is that the region and the global community have shown them clearly that you have failed to exercise your primary responsibility to deliver your country from violence to peace. And one of the indicators that you need to show that they are really politically taking primary responsibility, delivering the transitional security arrangement tasks, and which these tasks start first by unifying the security and the defense sector. And you have seen that have resulted to withdrawal of the friends of South Sudan like US from supporting RGMEC and CITISAM. That has become a big task. But also when they did the next 24 months, they can't convince anybody that they have changed political attitude. So they need to demonstrate certain level of political attitude change and certain level of political commitment and having a will to deliver the revitalized agreement. So the graduation is part of it. But also another pressing point is that opposition are mobilizing. Of course, by then only we have in the bush is mainly Thomas Cirillo and Malong. Now Stephen Boy has come up, and Stephen Boy is drawing attention. So armed opposition are mobilizing, and while Rome peace process is not leading anywhere, and there's a split up, so there's a chances that they feel if they don't deliver specifically the transitional security arrangement, the chances of those who may not be comfortable with their leadership will go behind and come through those individuals that I've mentioned, being it Stephen Boy with his movement or Thomas Cirillo or Malong, and that could have been another pressure point that may come. And of course, when people are discontented and disappointed, they can easily go. So they need to show something that to the nation that they have. Of course, yes, it's a long waited, but it's better to have it without having it completely or totally. So that's what to say. So that's the first analogy that I want to put on the table and to before your audience or before the viewers of Lex Media. The next thing is a question of, because if you look at the revitalized agreement, when we talk of transitional security arrangement, there are 4 principles that are key in chapter 2 in any transitional security arrangements. The 4 principles are what? One of the principles is that you need to have a unified security and defense sector, unified in terms of its governance structure. And one of these indicators is the unification of the command. At least now the command is unified. That's the first indicator. Second indicator is that you need to have a unified ranking system within the security and defense sector. That means we need to have all the ranks of the parties that were created in the struggle of the war need to be unified. So that's something that we need to do a lot of work around it. Yes, the command was unified, but the structure of the ranking was not yet unified. And you can't unify the structure of the ranking until you have a unified forces that are graduated officially and they have taken a national oath. So the third indication is the element of professionalism, unified command, unified this rank, then professionalism of the defense and the security sector institution, being it national security, being it the army, being it the police, being it the wildlife or the other civil defense units. They need to be professional. And that's where the focus on the nature of the graduation and the skills transfer during the time of the graduation, the curriculum use, the orientation done is very important. And I'm going to come back for it because it's something that is to be confirmed by tomorrow's graduation. That's the third indicator. The fourth indicator that is part of the chapter 2 is separation of power. What does it mean? It means distancing politicians from using security and defense sector for pursuing their political objective. So this element of a brigadier general in Belfam, at the same time honorable member in the parliament, is the fourth indicator that you need to separate that. It's a separation of politics, because if you don't separate them, then the model of Sudan in terms of governance will be applied in South Sudan, where you need to politicize military and defense. At the same time, because you have politicized military and defense, now you need to militarize politics. So the militarization of politics and the politicization of military theory need to be broken here as a fourth indicator. Because remember, we are working in a country where we must use our loyalty to ethnicity. So if you start politicizing military and start militarizing politics, the chances of you politicizing and militarizing ethnicity is very clear. And I would like to put it forward very clear that we have a life indicators to avoid that. We have the armed groups that we can name them in the name of our communities: White Army, Matianganyor, Arrow Boys. You can name them Gelweng. You can name them Monyemiji. You can name them Red Devils. You know, all those mobilize youth Nyarangwa if you go to the Moroland. So these community defense forces, it may likely take a shape that they will be politicized and militarized if you don't disconnect military from politics or politics from military. So that's the fourth indicator. Now, out of these four indicators, two indicators are delivered, because for me, it's good to be more evidence-based in our argument, and we see where are we heading to and what's the next steps. So two indicators were delivered. The two indicators are what? The unification of the command is delivered. We have seen it already. The command were unified, and you can see them in the preparation of the graduation. That you don't see now any IO and IG or OPP or so on. You see them all as SSPDF. That was being done, which is a very good one. Then, in terms of the indicator around professionalism, is the second indicator that we're struggling for it now, where we have seen some few legislation were amended to define ethics or skills, what is called professionalism. Like our military band then used to be called SPLA, which is now no longer legal SPLA. It's South Sudan People's Defense Force. So the naming of South Sudan People's Defense Force is based on a law, and the law have enshrined what type of ethics they need to have. So I think that is done. The Police Act is done. Of course, still we have questions around the National Security Service Act in terms of powers and responsibility to arrest or to detain or to gather information. Of course, these are national issues that still we can debate them, as long as we don't derail debates around them to delay the transition of the process of the country from violence to peace. So that's the second indicator. And of course, this indicator also will be fully qualified if the forces are graduated. Now, the graduation is based on this. There were curriculum for training the forces that were developed for all security and defense sector. The curriculums were developed by a mechanism which is a completely 100% South Sudan's mechanism, composed of the military and defense units of the parties that signed the Electoral agreement. The mechanism is called Transitional Security Committee. It have developed the training models for police, for military, for army, for national security. And in that, of course, one is that they need to change the mentality of these forces so that they don't pay allegiance to where they belong to. Now they pay allegiance to the country. That's one thing. And two is that also in that model, which I've seen and I've looked at it, that at least professional South Sudanese have developed the model, but the model was undermined by lack of political will and political commitment to allow the model to be translated. So I will say the skills in the model may not be 100% transferred from the model to the trainees. Why? There's a few factors that has made that not to happen. One, absentia of the trainees who have been to be graduated and attending regular sessions on the training ground. Remember, some of them have to desert it. They have deserted the training ground. And remember, several people have confirmed that. Ministers of Defense have confirmed that. Official spokesmen of the government have confirmed that. The trainees have deserted the training ground because either lack of feeding or either lack of medication or either lack of payment for them to pay for their family. So most of them deserted and some of them take up other livelihood activities. Now they've been called for graduation. So the chances that they have 100% received the skills and the ethics and the reforms But the training curriculum, to be honest with you, is not 100%. That's one thing I've mentioned. So still much work is needed. And the indicator is that in terms of professionalism, we have not yet met the standard in terms of really ethics and criteria. They're going to be graduated tomorrow. Tomorrow still they're going to have a problem with the slogan. Is it the Woye slogan? Is it the Viva slogan? Is it the Take a Boom slogan? Which one are you going to pay allegiance to? Woye slogan is a one-party slogan. Viva is a one-party slogan. Take a Boom is a one-party slogan. Or if they declare that now they have taken oath and they graduated, will they all, some of them sound Woye, some of them sound Viva, some of them sound Take a Boom? That still is a gap. Because I remember that at the level of the JTCS, and I sit at one of the mechanisms of the security and defense, there's a mechanism under the chair of Minister of Defense, Honorable Angelina Ten. I sit in that mechanism. The mechanism is called Strategic Defense and Security Review Board. I'm a member of that. And we have been given a slogan to vet. We vet a slogan of victor. So victory was the new slogan. Victory replaced Woye, victory replaced Viva, victory replaced Take a Boom. So the soldiers that are going to be graduated tomorrow, whether from defense and security, none of them should say Woye, none of them should say Viva, none of them should say Take a Boom. All of them have to say victory. So are they being oriented into the victory? So that's one thing that I like to say as a part of the second indicator that's not delivered. So two indicators are still critical, actually need to be delivered. The indicator of unification of ranks. Are they all going to be brigadiers? Lieutenant generals, how many are they? And based on what ethics, based on what standards? So the element of ranking still is going to face the transformation of the security sector. But of course, it's not a big issue if the professional South Sudanese in security and defense unit are given the responsibility without any political manipulations from the politicians, because sometimes politicians manipulate process and undermine the work of professionals in the transformation of our country in terms of security and defense sector reform. And that's why I like to take this, if I can give an example. If you're supposed to give the coach of our basketball team a politician, not Loal, who is a professional, they would have failed. They would have not gone for the high rank. If a politician is supposed to coach them and take a group of politicians, we would have failed. But because Loal Deng is a professional, it's a field that he comes from, he played for it, he understands the language, understands the energy, he have taken us to the first ranking of African nation in the basketball qualification. But sometimes when it comes to security and defense, some politicians just want to meddle politics within the transformation of defense and security sector. So the indicator around unification of ranks need to be free from politics, need to be allowed to the professionals, and also some leaders need to be ready. From brigadier general, you may find yourself captain. Because why? You don't meet the ethics. Because I'll tell you, I'm in WOW. One time, 2 years or 3 years back, I was in WOW here. I traveled WOW. There's a market in WOW in a place called Loko Loko. I find a civilian shop selling various ranks of the army. So it's a matter of you just jumping to the bush of either Ju River or Bagari somewhere, and you buy a rank, you go together with it. So you promote yourself, self-promotion. While you ask, what are the ethics? What are the requirements for you to have that grade? It's going to be there. So there will be set of IO, set of SSPDF, set of SOA forces that will get disappointed when it comes to the ranking. Some of them have to work from their big rank of self-promotion. They have to come back. And for example, what you have seen with the spokesperson of Kitgwang Group, Garwich, when he left the Kitgwang Group, he defected to join Juba prior to the Khartoum Peace Agreement, he promoted himself. From nowhere, he just created a rank, and then he uploaded on social media, Garwich promoted me to this rank. And when Garwich was at the no, I've never promoted him. He promoted himself. So those self-promotion ranks are going to face challenge in terms of unification of the ranking. So that's going to be the next challenge after the graduation. So I'll say the graduation may not meet 100% the required standards in terms of professionalism of the army, but I think this offers still an opportunity in a way that we should have them unified, but still we invest in the security and defense sector reforms, because through security and defense sector reforms, we can still build on them. That's one thing that I'd like to say. The second thing that is going to face them after the graduation, it's a dilemma of redeployment. So how are they going to be redeployed tomorrow if they graduated? And remember, if I'm to use one sector out of those sectors, especially the police sector tomorrow graduated in two. Tomorrow the police that are going to be graduated, they have been divided into two phases. Part of that police is going to be federal police. Part of that police is going to be state police. So each state is going to have its own police. and we have a federal state police going to be graduated tomorrow. So the police tomorrow to be graduated is not one police, it's 2 units of police. Federal police and then the state police. How are we going to redeploy the state police? What is going to be the coordination between the federal police and the state police in terms of policy, legal frameworks? Those are gaps that need to be addressed. But at least that we feel that if they graduated, that gives us an opportunity to now have the chance to hold them accountable and to work together for a transformation or professionalism of the sector, because without them being unified, still politically, they're taking stand like, I don't agree with my brother because we are not yet in one. So it's good that unification is being done and they're going to go for the unification. So I think for me, that is the sector that is going to be. But also one thing that is going to happen after the unification that I feel, and specifically for me as an activist, I would like to raise up is that we need to take responsibility as civil society, as a media, and I will urge Lex media to start thinking about that. We need to have series of publishing the code of conduct for these forces. Because for the last, since our independence, citizen does not know what is the code of conduct for our police service. Police can behave, police can act as a judge. Police can act at the same time as a defense lawyer. While actually their code of conduct does not allow them to that. So I think publishing, orienting our citizens to understand the code of conduct. Yes, we may not have time to learn about the National Police Service Act. We may not have time to learn about South Sudan People's Defense Force Act or National Security Act, but their code of conduct, we should publish them. And actually, even I will demand their code of conduct should be sometimes printed in our national language because it's a very small document. So in terms of social contract, the code of conducts of these forces are going to be graduated. We need to take them serious so that we can hold them accountable and don't take side with any party because they have reached code of conduct. But unfortunately, even some of the forces are not oriented on the code of conduct and they don't know the code of conduct. So we need to start taking responsibility to publish the code of conduct to make sure that they are there. So I think for me, that's what I'm going to say. And the next dilemma that is going to affect them is the linkages between the graduated unified forces role and the non-graduated unified forces role. And those forces that have allegiance to the party. And if the parties give attention, for example, if you tomorrow graduate the police and you graduate the army, what is going to be the ratio between the army you graduated, a South Sudan People's Defense Force tomorrow? What is the ratio between them and Tiger? And Tiger is not yet a unified force. Tiger is a more of a presidential guards. What is going to be the difference between the South Sudan SSPDF that you graduate tomorrow and with the IO forces that are outside? Would have been in Western Baragazal, in Bagari, those commanders who are still in the bush, will they adhere to their counterparts that are now already named as South Sudan People's Defense Force graduated? So that coordination is very important. And I think my appeal will be that the government need to take responsibility as a call, that as they graduate the forces in the training ground right now, they should enroll the non-unified forces to the training grounds. And we have seen today an article in iRadio that the Minister of Defense have said the next phase that is going to happen as a second phase of training and unified and graduating the next phase by 2, it's going to take 6 months period. It means if you count from the month of September, the next phase is going to be graduated in February, which is the expiration of the term of the revitalized agreement or the expiration of transitional period. Then it means the batch 3 are going to be graduated within the time span of the extended transitional period within 24 months. So we don't want to see another excuse by saying the round 2 of the unification of the process need to be delayed. Actually, if they're genuine, they should build on the momentum because these who are graduated right now, their colleagues want to go. They said, look here, my rank, my position, my loyalty, my legitimacy, I need to go to the training ground. So there's a high motivation of the forces or of the soldiers that they are ready to go and report to the training ground. But of course, they're not reporting for an empty training ground. You need feeding system, you need medical system, you need allowances. Now, if you graduate these forces and you don't seize the size so that you can pay for them, you may have another group that you legitimize them as a legitimate institution, but they may turn against the civilians if they're unable to meet their needs of livelihood. So you need to make sure their salaries are regular, they are paid, and they undergone ethics orientation so they can really show the element of unification, because unification is a principle of professionalism. Unification is a principle of non-partisanship. Unification is a principle of non-ethnic affiliation. Unification is a principle of paying allegiance to the Constitution rather than to the party that brought you to the uniform. So that requires a series of follow-up. And my final conclusion is that if the unified forces are graduated tomorrow, how much will they coordinate with the UN peacekeeping force. Remember, UN peacekeeping force have a police. UN peacekeeping force have a military. How can they complement each other? Or how can they supplement each other? And remember, the principle of deployment have to be the principle of protection of civilians. So if the principle, both for the government and UN peacekeeping force, is the protection of civilians, how have they met? Have they discussed? Have they agreed? Have they sort of like share information on how do we redeploy forces with the principle of protection of civilians? And then they coordinate so that the little UNIMIS help offers an opportunity to where the government can't reach. So for me, those are some of the critical things that they need to take up serious and they need to work around it. And of course, this requires political will. And that's why I'm somebody who's calling that immediately after the graduation, we need to see a national roundtable on the redeployment of the forces, so that that redeployment is subject and is open for discussion for public, and that redeployment is having ethics and principle. Why are we redeploying? For what purposes? What indicators do we need to gain through the redeployment? Protection of civilians? Yes, protection of civilians. Where? Are we targeting ethnic communities that are violently fighting? Do you need to redeploy there to show presence of the state in providing discipline, law, and order? Or do we need to go to the border posts because we need to protect our borders from any eventualities that may come from outside? In terms of police, doing to strengthen taxation units much more better than others. So for me, those are some of the key questions that we need to do. So not to bored the viewers and the listeners, for me, I'm ready to answer, to take up the discussion further with questions that we exchange as a dialogue among ourselves between me and the viewers and those who are listening. So for me, that is it. And of course, remember still, there's ethnic fear. Are you ready to move one ethnic group to another? So for me, those are things that we need to have open discussion after the graduation to professionalize our army. Otherwise, I would say congratulations to the politicians for demonstrating little political will and commitment that they are now moving chapter 2, which they have delayed for the 4 years, with too many political excuses that are meaningless without anything. So thank you. Over there to you.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for such wonderful analysis on unifying forces, their graduation, and redeployment. But there are two critical issues there that you touch, and we need to explore them further. The first one, yes, you agreed and you accepted that these forces did not acquire the authentic and professional skill to stand up as a national army and to stand up as a national police. And most of the citizens believe so, simply because there were no people on the ground to be trained. As you mentioned before, most of them deserted the training sites for almost 2 years. Now, even some are leaving today to their graduation site last week, at least to go and meet their colleagues so that they can march tomorrow and they can be carried through all these vehicles to John Garang Mausoleum. So it tells you that most of this army or unified forces do not require a requisite skill that all of us as citizens will feel safe upon their graduation and deployment. That is up to date, but we will see how they will react for the first 6 months of the redeployment. The second issue that you tackle is the issue of rank. And that is where most of our discussions should take part of it. And then we move to the economic aspect of it, maintenance of this army, whether the government is having a certain package for this army to maintain them. And remember, even the army that is currently under the responsibility of the government are not even living in a better condition. So we don't know whether this increment of the huge number of forces that is being redeployed again will have a better life. The issue of rank, Mr. Edmund, you know, there is one idea here with South Sudan is when you rebel, others rebel merely to earn a lot of ranks. They don't rebel based on their ideas. And all of them, when you see them, the IO soldiers during the training side, most of them march to the field with the rank of major. The lowest is major, of 4 ranks. and above. And when you look at the government side, they could possibly be having others without rank. But now, training is a different thing. But incorporating these ranks to meet at the standard of the National Army, incorporated this rank not to disadvantage those who are now in Bilpam and those who are now in division size, not to disadvantage those who are now in service, the police, the national security. Because if you bring in these unified forces with a higher rank, and most of them likely don't even have experience, and someone who has been in the system for the last 11 years in our independence is still with no rank. What do you think about that? Secondly, do you believe if the government does not come up with a good modality on how to incorporate their ranks with the current army and the current police, do you think others will be dissatisfied with the process and join the rebel groups that are currently outside the country? And if so, then will South Sudan government or revitalized government have something to say in regard to the ranking? Thank you, Edmund.
Thank you very much for this list of questions. I think of course, the question of ranking have bypassed even beyond. We can't only level IO for that. All of them almost, the SOA, the OPP that claim have forces, they have the same. And of course, within our SPLA forces, but then some of them quickly acquire ranks that are very high. So ranking system is going to be a really big problem. As you said, in all the parties across the board, the parties are going to have an issue of ranking because of self-ranking or promotions that are abnormal, not based on ethics and standards. That's going to challenge them. You know, one of the strategy that the parties need to adapt so that the ranking system is accomplished with effective DDR process, demobilization and really clear demobilization and disarmament and reintegration. So some of these people per the standards of a new ranking, and that's why for me that the ranking system shouldn't be done in a political manner. You need to unify the ranking system in a professional manner. What do you mean professional? It means first you may need to define skills and professionalism that are required and experience that are required to qualify somebody for a certain rank. Then you subject those who have those ranks to meet their standards or eligibility. We need to have a ranking eligibility. And among the ranking eligibility, to make it much more better, is attached to it DDR process. Because some of them, if you demobilize them and if you disarm them, then you need to send them for reintegration. So DDR is required as one of the strategy for managing ranking system, but also ranking system should not be managed politically, should be managed professional. So it means they need to undergo exams of ranking after they have been graduated. And some of these ranks are not simple. Some of these ranks you need to have access, that you have capability of shooting certain types of guns. So take them to a parade, put all the guns, send them, operate them. Because your rank is supposed to have somebody. Your rank is supposed to be somebody who has skills to deal with these arms. Go for military strategy, design for us a warfare. This is the way how the enemies look like. Set exams, written exams, go medical tests, face aging. Because one of the things that I'm worried, my brother, people are now reducing their age, by the way. People have to create for themselves new birth certificates. So if somebody who is already 50 years old, we have to go and obtain a birth certificate that reduced 20 years out of his actual age.
So you mentioned another critical point, my brother. The issue of age in our country is like everyone is living in a fake life in South Sudan now.
Exactly.
Anything, you can buy anything and you can alter anything. And it is very sad.
We are revitalizing political process. Some people are revitalizing their age. So you see somebody physically look 60 years old, but he will tell you, I'm still 30 years old. And then I say, my friend, the difference of 30-year-old is a youth. But your physical face look like, but you say, my friend, starvation in this country might have changed my face. So this is one of the big issues that you need to take it serious in terms of aging, because I know when the pension age was defined, most people went to our birth registration authority and acquire birth. And actually these days, yes, some of us are victims of the birthday of 1st January. But if you see now, almost all aged people have a new birthday certificates of 1st January. Then start to wonder, how come the whole ministry, elderly people have a birthday of 1st January? And some of them, they'll tell you that, I was in a rural setup or I'm in urban setup. So that is another issue that they need to go physically. So they need to go for physical exams. We know you have to use certain skills of running, test the chest, test the lungs. The lungs are something the standard to be captain, my friend. You go as a Jundi. There's no need, you need to be here. So they need to go a professional exams for the ranking. That's for me the best way to manage. But also, as we're working on the ranking, honestly, the leadership of the country need to take a political responsibility of not rewarding anybody who is discontented by exercising revolution. Because of rewarding revolutions with ranking, it's creating a chaos. Like, for example, the culture we have now, I'm Edmund today, I'm speaking to you. It's a matter of me going back home, mobilize 3 or 4 soldiers, give them rank, we attack an SPLA car or Unified Force car, and I just call myself. I'm the chairperson and commander-in-chief of whatever new force against this revitalized or extension period. And now my name from being an activist, I become a chairperson and attached to the title of Brigadier General or General. So you come to see me from nowhere, I become a general. And I come and sign an agreement with President Salva, and Salva confirms that rank as General Edmund. And so you find me, I'm in uniform. And I've seen people who are my colleagues who are civilians, that I know them, they don't deserve ranks. Now you see them, they're moving with the bodyguards, ranks, but let the bullet sound boo. They're the first one to run. Remember, I'd like to bring a case here just to share with your viewers.
We know them by name.
2016, I organized a workshop in a hotel in Juba called Juba Regency, prior to the incident of J1. 2 days before, is a reconciliation among the spokespersons. It's a reconciliation among the spokesperson of the armies that are in the force. So when I was organizing that workshop, Malone came to close it when he was chief of staff. As Malone came to close it, it breaks J1 into a war. My friend, as a host of the workshop in the hall, I collected ranks that were thrown down. I started asking, are the owners of this rank really professionals? Now, people start releasing out their ranks. And this shows you how civilians find themselves in uniform. And I'm worried that in these graduated forces, there's a likelihood that a high percentage of civilians may be graduated tomorrow. But let the fire start. Some of them will convert to end up as a pastors. You come to realize instead of holding gun to protect, they start preaching the word of God. So they end up as a chaplain. So those chances are very, very, very high. Simply.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for that. Yes. We have heard the breaking news that the giant of the Nile have landed successfully in Juba. And we need to see how these people have been received by the citizen and the government officials. Of course, these people need what they call a mega reception, from the airport all the way to one of the biggest hotels, because we always like to go to the newest hotel. So in this case, could be Diamond Radisson Blue. So maybe they need mega reception from the airport to the Radisson Blue for the speeches and appreciation and all this before they dispatch to their respective residential area. Back to the topic, Mr. Edmund. You're actually making a lot of meaningful statements here that are giving people to laugh, but in reality, those are the things that are happening. There was one of the army in Sierra Leone, not in Sierra Leone, in Angola, during the civil war and during the rebellion of Jonas Savimbi. This man, one of his generals, was so brutal, killing everyone, all civilians. But after they were captured, he threw away all the rank immediately and he ran to the church. I watched his documentary last month, and you are amazed on how the man is prophesying God's words and preaching to the people how people should live as brothers and sisters. So the same thing is possibly to happen in our country. As you put it, some of them may desert the military and turn into pastors. Anyway, just move on. What do you think about if they are not satisfied with the process of ranking? Do you think some of them will join the rebellion, or will some of them rebel? Thank you.
Obviously, if the ranking, there's a three activities that need to be managed very well, and these activities, in terms of their management, because they are more linked with the personal expectation of those in uniform. What are they? One, the ranking. Unification of the ranking system need proper management and need really a very strong leadership, because otherwise the unification of the rank will strip some of them to jump and join Rompi's process. And they may live here as a captain, but they may come through Rompi's process as a brigadiers. So it means you need to manage the ranking system very well in a way that you don't give opportunity. And of course, managing the ranking very well, one, should be based on merits. The political practice that we have seen in the formation of the government should not be exercised in the ranking system, where top leaders bring their friends, their family ones, their allies to the seats where you can receive ACs. So those that does not fall as allies, as family members, as loved ones, have to go to where there's a fund. And that fund may be a fund that was a second-hand fund brought from one office in the Electoral, you sit here. Likely you need to go to the AC as equal as, and sometimes people who come today are the one receiving the AC than those who are by then struggling. So it means the ranking system have to follow a complete military science, ethics, in terms of whether being police, national security, or military officers. That's one to manage. Because remember, the ranking system have link with the salary structure. Salary structure have a link with
we are actually coming to that topic, because it's one of the critical points for you to discuss.
Exactly. So the ranking system to manage well. Two, redeployment. Because if you're going to redeploy people, you need to redeploy people based on merits. You come to realize that somebody who is Edmund, and I'm close friend to you, my brother, my job, you redeploy me to be the chief accountant of the revenue authority. And the revenue authority has no system there of payment of cash through bank. So as people pay, at least I work with 5,000 per day in my pocket. And after 5,000, you have 2,000, and then my family might have 1,000, then my beer and my lunch and my bribery have another 1,000. So some people will come to realize themselves that from nowhere they find themselves in the resource places, and others who are fit to be there, they feel they are, so they may rebel also. They say, no, we're tired. So we don't want to see the political reputation and formation of the government should be entertained in the unification of the forces and professionalism of the forces. That's something that if it's brought to the security and defense sector, likely some of them will run to bush. And remember, there's a people who have sharp appetite of receiving people in uniform, like what happened with the Stephen Boyd that we have seen in Unity. And of course, Malong still is threatening, besides, I don't know what happened with Malong, because we saw him signing and assigning his forces to CITISAM. I don't know if the forces arrived for CITISAM or not. So those are some of the things that need to be properly managed and cared for in terms of there. The other thing is the privileges of those who are unified in terms of allocation to offices and vehicles. Those things, it sounds small, it sounds something not beneficial, but it's something that may make somebody again go back to bush and face mosquitoes because he didn't get a V8 and somebody have got V8 who is junior than him. But obviously also, one thing that needs to be managed well is what you have mentioned, seniority and the history of uniform. all throughout, I know that I was a soldier and I was a trainer. And I realized that you are one of the cowards who have run away in one of the battles. Today you come as my boss under unification. Will I respect you honestly? I will respect you. I say like, yeah, my friend, I know you very well. So that's it. And of course, I'm not undermining also our diaspora, people who are like you, who sits in the social media and soon you landed on us like these eagles or wolves landing with ranks. Then start asking, my brother, you are in Australia, you have been in Canada, you have been in America. How come today you sit in the office with a rank now? And you know, when start using your diaspora English, I'm gonna want to tell you, we came from the West, we are from the West. And I've been fighting for the 21 years. And then I see you sitting on the table. Will I expect that, I'm going to join Thomas Cirillo, I'm going to Malong, I'm going to Stephen Boy. So, those sounds very small things, but they may hold this country hostage to violence if they're not properly managed. So the chances of some people may feel discontented and run to the bush is very high.
Thank you.
The unification is not managed professional.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund. You have really exhaustively explored the possibilities of these unified forces, some of them joining rebellion simply because they did not meet the expectation. And for that regard, we will move to the issue of maintenance, economic aspect of these unified forces. Edmund, the condition of our army now, or military in general, the highest is somebody who is earning 7,000 pounds. And 7,000 pounds is equivalent with the 10.5 or $10.50. And the junior one is earning 1,500. Now, when you cannot even maintain those who are in your house, the living condition is horrible. Most of them has joined robbery. And you mentioned, I guess as you mentioned it, if not you, then could be one of our guests, that these graduation forces will increase number of roadblock. Because if they find themselves that they will not have anything to eat within Juba, then the only thing to do is to run between Lanya and Ye and station at their roadblocks there in order to collect some money from passengers and vehicles that are transporting people from Ye to Lanya and even from Lanya to Juba. The same thing from Nimili to Juba, the same thing from Juba to Mangala, from Mangala to Bor, from Juba to Terkega, from Terkega to Warial, and from even Terkega, from Juba to Kaltop. So basically, citizens are worried. Do you think government is having package for these unified forces? Because you cannot just be graduated like tomorrow and they expect you to go back to the training size, the training ground. Is there any place the government has already secured and prepared after the graduation? Then they need also to be divided into divisions and each division have to go to their place. So do we have such arrangement from the government side, Mr. Edmund, followed by the salary structure of this army or the incentives? In other words, do government have that? Thank you, Edmund.
Thank you very much. When you talk of deployment, I've been telling some people that today we have been chatting with some few. I drive from Mawil to Wow today. Very funny story. In the car where I was driving, and I didn't move with NGO, I moved with the public. Normally, I want to be part of the public so that you interact with the public. So in the car where I am, I have 2 traffic police officers who are rushing from somewhere in the distance between Awil and Wow, rushing for Wow to join graduation tomorrow. So they are very happy, laughing. Oh, I'm going to be graduated. Oh, we're going to be unified. And then I asked him, all this time, where have I been trained? He said, my friend, what's wrong with you? So after all, uniform, the traffic police officer was Sofara, down to the election. Safati bada if now question that for Yemin Dor. So those are the one guys chatting with me. Then I asked them, what do you expect to be the benefit of your moral and motivation to ask for the unification? He said, number one, I need a consistent salary. If there's no consistent salary, my Sofara will continue getting for me a consistent salary. So no, his whistle will continue getting for him a consistent salary. So it means he'll go back. So the redeployment, if we don't put economy well, if we don't put the dollar value to redeployment very well, some people are going to have self-redeployment. Some people are not going to be following what we call state redeployment. They're going to have self-redeployment. I'm Edmund, I don't want to be in Juba. I want to be in that particular station. And that is station with my rank, I'm in charge. When you ask where you've been redeployed, say, I redeploy myself here. So we need to avoid self-redeployment. We can avoid the self-redeployment when we put a dollar value to redeployment. And we're putting dollar value to redeployment. It means the question of professionalism, ethic, merits determines the concept of redeployment. That's why I'm repeatedly saying we need to have a national conversation around the redeployment of our forces. What is the plan? How the plan look like? How the plan is not only locating them, stationing them somewhere. How are they accommodated? Have the state put a budget to start building barracks? And will these barracks be like the previous barracks that cut down cost of rent for officers? So officers have already built houses that when they go there, it reduces from their salary burden of paying rent. And they live in a barrack system. And then in that barrack system, they have schools for their children. They have medical health centers. Do we have those? Those are not yet there. Do we have an alternative to those? Is that taken into their salary account structure so they get motivated? And then have we taken the cost of living for a single soldier so that the single soldier will not bend the law? You know, some soldiers, they like bending the law. They don't break the law, but they will bend it. When ask them, they can put it back straight, like the traffic police officers, like the customs, where they just see anything whistle. They look for a mistake in order to get from a kickback, or they become aggressive so that you can put your hand in your pocket and you pull 1,000 SSP to silence them, not to be aggressive. Or you have to clear their aggressive face by paying them something later so that they keep quiet with you. And then even in the migration, in the national security, somebody cannot arrest you until you bribe him to dodge the principle of arresting you. So if you don't put the dollar value into the redeployment, this redeployment may not carry a stage. What about if you redeploy a soldier who is a farmer all this time and deploy him to an area where he's not going to farm? And his livelihood, he will do a redeployment, or even he will desert the redeployment plan. So the economy attached to redeployment is very important. Or in simple terms, the livelihood that attached to redeployment is very important. That's why I'm saying let the redeployment plan be open, be disclosed, so that we check the other aspects like livelihood, the aspect like ethics, to respect rule of law, to respect human rights, the privileges, how does it look like, and how do you allocate it? So I think it's a part and parcel of our parliament. If we could have a good parliament after tomorrow, after the graduation of tomorrow, the next session, that the parliament subject and question the ministers that are in charge of security and defense sector and finance, come and tell us how are we going to cover the benefits and allowances and the privileges and the salary structure for these unified forces. Because, and then what about if you put now money into unified forces? One of the things that I've been chatting, I'm Edmund, I'm a commander, and all this time soldiers have been in unification training ground. For example, if by ideal the unification happened, but I have 17 of my family members who are my bodyguards, they have not gone there. Now unification will come. Do I automatically unify them? And will I subject them to go for unification process? And then they can say, please, now you go with professional army, they come and protect me, but I don't need to. Do I trust those who will come? So these are all issues that are associated with the unification, logical arguments that we need to have it. We need to have a discussion around it. So that's one of the things that. So I'm worried that the unification may trigger some people jumping back to the bush simply because they are not contented with either redeployment plan or where they redeploy or the system of redeployment or benefits attached to the redeployment. Because right now, most of them, I don't know where this fake news come from. I didn't qualify it. Right now, most of the soldiers that are seriously in the training and exercising the graduation, in their mindset that they're going to receive immediately 6 months salary. I don't know who created that fake, because I've never seen any official document that if they graduate, they're going to receive 6 months salary. 6 months salary of what type of structure? Is it a 4,000 structure, 6,000 structure? So there's motivation, and this tells you very clear. The traffic police that are today with me in the car, the way they're moving, like they start promising. start calling their wives, pray to God. I'm going to be graduated and I'm going to be redeployed. I'm going to get money. So too much ngete is going to be reduced. No more bamia and all this. At least we're going to eat beef. So those expectations are the politicians prepared to respond to it timely, actually, not only respond to timely. So for me, these are some of the issues that are associated with the unification of the forces with the principle of graduation and redeployment.
Yeah, thank you, Edmund. Indeed, you have explained it the way it is and what the future hold for these unified forces. And remember, Edmund, expectations sometimes, if you expect outcomes so high and the outcome turn out to be so low, you will not only be disappointed, but you will be traumatized. So all of us, we are worried. As you have just seen from some of these people going back to their training ground so that they go tomorrow for graduation, people are very excited. They're happy. And their expectations are so high. If you ask them now, anybody, he will tell you that I will have money and I will be deployed either in oil sector or non-oil revenue sector through custom, or I will be sent outside to the embassies. This is what they're thinking now. And remember, even the deployment within the national security, which has now turned to control every security aspect in our country, are also in trouble. If you don't have a political father, no matter how qualification or credentials you have, you will never be deployed anywhere where you can smell or you can take African tea. They will always leave you on the street. Most of them, I know them, they are qualified and they are currently on the street. But those who are mediocres are the ones that are holding big offices, as you put it earlier. And our government officials will not stop doing so. Let's come back to the issue of disengaging general from politics. It was last year when President Kiir issued the order that if you are an army personnel, then you should not be allowed to participate in any political issue, either from community level, from Payam, Buma, state, county, up to national level. And that order up to now, if you ask the President Salva Kiir, he will tell you, I don't know when did I issue that order and where the order is. Because the parliament did not even take that order seriously. So you said earlier, some of the general in bill palms are currently our national MPs in the parliaments. Despite the language, some of them don't even have proper Arabic to explain their point. Don't even talk about the foreign language, especially English. So, to be honest, Edmund, do you believe that our government is willing to do so? And remember, out of 10 states, maybe 2% of those states could be governed by mere civilians. And 98% of them are generals, military generals. Move down to the commissioners of our counties. Most of them have military backgrounds. So basically, we pretend like we are a democratic society, but we are purely a military government. Do you believe the President Salva Kiir will reactivate that order of last year and put it into action? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the order. You know, when that order was issued, where it demilitarized politics, because it's demilitarization of politics, that if you are in uniform, don't play with politics at any level, even at level of youth movement, at the level of women movement, at level of community movement, don't do that. And if you see that order affects quite a number of governors who are in uniform. It's only one hero that have respected that uniform. And I take this opportunity to salute him. One person that have shown a respect to the order and have shown commitment. It is the SPLM chairperson of Gogorial East County. He was a general in the prison service. He tabled his resignation for being the chairperson of a political party at the county level. Because the order say him as a uniform person should not engage in politics. So he is resigning from being a party chair at county level. He is the only person we have seen. And he took a decision of respecting the order. Actually, he should be rewarded for that, for really showing a culture of a civilized leader. But how many governors have not respected that? How many commissioners have not respected that? How many chairpersons of political parties that are also in uniform never respected that? And as you said, normally, president's directives end up as directives, not being taken serious by our legislative structure, where they can convert it into a policy, legal policy and parliamentary act. Because the parliament could have immediately summoned the ministers in charge of the uniform institutions that make sure none of your members are in political structures. Can you move a step forward notifying them to quit those seats? And political is asking those who want to have a political appetite, can you decide between the two? Can you resign from your uniform rank and you continue the political seat, or you opt to go to the barracks and you leave the political seat? That order has not been taken serious. Simply why? Because there are challenges. One of the challenges to the president is that his close allies are the same guys in uniform that he issued order against them. It looks like, remember the letters that written 75 for corrupt leaders. The corrupt leaders are within the circle of the friends. So that is one of the things that challenge the implementation of the order. But I think if we are serious and if we feel that time has come for democratic transformation of our governance structure, our governance sector, our governance practice, and we need to maintain commitment to democratic standards, then such orders need to be taken serious after the unification. That's very clear, because I remember in one of the police address, when some of the commanders were addressing the police and even some military. I've been tracking because I've been monitoring the preparation and I've been following messages, because sometimes some messages have a problem in building attitudes and mindset for our members in uniform, where they're told that civilians are criminal. Just in general, civilians are criminal. And so anybody come from uniform knows that anybody civilian is a criminal without knowing what criminology is and what defines crime. So I remember in 2 locations, generals are addressing the force and say, distance yourself from politics. They have told police officers, once we graduate you as a unified force, distance yourself from politics. We have seen this message to military, we have seen this message to national security officers. But that language is a mere statement in the air, without a follow-up strategy, without entrusting an institution to check and balance. And I feel that president would have entrusted an institution through his order to ensure that that's there. And where sometimes members of security forces tend to play a policing role. Recently, I have an issue with someone. You have to use national security to evict decision of public attorney. So you start having practice where people start using their brothers and their sisters in the national security services to undermine rule of law. And nobody questioned them for undermining that. And I remember our national security service have sometimes tried their officers, dismissed their officers that bypass the principle of rule of law. Once they're caught, they're arrested, they're dismissed, and soldiers were held accountable. So it's a question of practice and it's a question of leadership. That people who are in charge need to take a leadership responsibility, like the way how this chairperson of Gogorial East County taking a responsibility that I'm the chairperson of the county party, SPLM party here, but the order say I shouldn't be here. So I have to resign from being a chairperson of the party because I prefer to be in uniform than to be in a political arena. He could have decided to resign from the uniform and go to the political party. So it's a question of political maturity. It's a question of leadership. So His Excellency President is going to be challenged if he favors some and he does not favor others. And also if you leave it as a vague order without a follow-up mechanism, it's not going to work. And it's part and parcel of the 4 steps that I've mentioned with regard to transitional arrangement, because we are expecting elections. If you don't stand up and in a professional way, in a legal way, with a parliamentary act to disconnect politics and security and defense sector, the coming elections is going to generate more revolutions. Because some generals are going to contest. And remember, in 2010 elections, most of it were generals who carried the revolution. You have the one of George Athol. You have the one of David Yao Yao. You have the one of Peter Sole. You have Banden Paulino Matip. So you see, those are all generals that attempt to exercise. And that's why one of the things that as electoral law is going, this is one thing that I was one of the person some few days ago, you are aware that the National Constitutional Amendment Committee are already proposing amendments to the electoral law. I'm one of the person that we need to see a provision in the electoral law. And also this is a call to our legal fraternity. South Sudan is the legal fraternity. We need to ensure there's a provision in the electoral law that says if you want to contest in elections and you are in uniform based on the order of the president, which is a law. No, the order of the president partly is a part and parcel of a law of the country. So that order is a law. We need to integrate into electoral law that if you have rank, you are not allowed to contest for any political elected position until you dispose or you give in your resignation from uniform, and then you can contest. And we need to orient politicians that when you see that your competitor is somebody in uniform, you complain. You file a complaint that this is a general in this, and is competing with me. And the order of the president says people who are in uniform are not supposed to be contesting the election, because actually that order of the president have sanctioned generals and anybody in uniform not to contest in the upcoming elections. But if you don't take this into the electoral law in the amendment right now, some of them are going to threaten it, because we're going to get this system where Edmund is contesting with a very renowned son of the constituency who came from diaspora, who is well-educated, well-informed, smart enough, but he is of young age, 35 years, Edmund is of 50 years, but because I'm brigadier general, I have 17 of my family members, the brothers, the sons of my brothers, the sons of my sisters, our young in-law ones, they are my bodyguards. They will intimidate anybody who will make me fail, because their lifeline is my success to the election. And even they will vote in the house and take these votes to the polling station and impose on the polling station that you must accept this box. This box is been voted in the barracks, and they bring it to the military parade with a very good cocked AK-47 and RPGs, and they say, "You can choose between the two. You either accept whatever inside this ballot box, or we deal with you right now from here." So we need to start preparing ourselves for that particular eventualities and that particular attitude, because it's going to happen there. Some people are going to be getting their votes in the barracks. Parade the soldiers, Safa, Tiba, Betalimat. You like it, don't like it, Yaude. Then, if we don't take that order seriously, so for me, those are some of the things that the political leadership of the country need to take it serious. So we are not only looking at electoral reforms that are only election reforms. We need to see electoral reforms with political reforms. And part of electoral and political reforms is disconnect between military, security, and politics. So that when you go for the elections, nobody intimidates. And also, we don't have an army or police that will protect Edmund, because they feel that Edmund is an SPLM, it's our government. So we in uniform, we protect him because he is from. So some governors are going to use state machinery to rig votes. Yes, the one of Ruto in Kenya that we have seen now going on in the social media is an electronic rig, but ours is manual. And the only way you succeed in manual rigging is increase the uniform and empower uniform, feed them well, make them drunk, they shoot guns, they shoot bullets, they voted, they impose ballot box, and we've seen that in 2010 elections. So that for me is the biggest issue, that His Excellency President, and I'm not him alone. If we're to speak to the spirit of the agreement, it's the presidency. The presidency need to stand up. And of course, the presidents will never stand up until when we speak out. Yes, we may speak out today, may not be looking something influential, but if we keep on talking, words and sounds can create a difference. The music that you hear today, if you hear it daily, will become the music that you like to hear. Because you don't hear it anymore, you don't feel it. So we need to speak about these issues always, and we should not avoid it, and we should make sure we speak professional so that they can get it, because otherwise it's going to be problematic in terms of our security sector reform. Because even we have ministers who are generals, some of them are using, and even I'll tell you, I don't know if you follow our political leaders' address in public events. You find some of them go for public events that is civil, but they use military language. I salute you, all of you, in this particular gathering. And I would like to give you that, no, I salute you and I want to direct you. Military language is being used in a civilian. So the audience is start saying, okay, if you salute me, what about if I ask you a question? It means a salute will follow with a slap. That's a military person. So for me, these are things that as we unify the security defense sector, we need to take into account together as we're professionalizing our military and our info. Two, we need to move, if we unify our army, the connection between civilian settlement and military settlement. Because part of the transformation of our army is that we need to see barracks out of civilian settlements. Like what happened in J1, how many civilians were lost? Because we did the periphery of the civilians. So why should we see military in Konyo market, SPLA or South Sudan People Defense Force in Konyo? They should be outside the capital. We should see police. And when we see police, why should we see a police that are drunk and begging? We need to see a professional police. You know, if you today take images of police, and you say this is a police from Ghana, this is a police from Uganda, this is a police from this is a police from this is a police from South Sudan, our police would just look like somebody who is either being fakely positioned into a uniform. You don't see the fitness, the smartness, the nature of attitude. So those are all things that they look small, they look minor, but they inform. Look at our basketball team. When our guys stand, you'll feel this is a basketball player. Physically fit, you can see him very well. But how much of the state money is injected into that? No, it is more of mobilization. So as they arrive Juba, one of the things that I need to see is honestly for president to really take responsibility and shake their hands one by one. And I hope that when the president is shaking them, they ask like, we wish that you take a responsibility to care for the generation to come after us. We have made the history today, but the state need to invest into basketball. So I hope the president can do that, whether it's Radisson Blue, but I'm worried they may not be in Radisson Blue. If they're not careful, they may be ending up in J1. And in J1, the language become more military. You know, in the liberation days when we're fighting in the bush of Belfam Battalion, instead of saying, you know, the pitch of the stadium of Melekia in High Melekal, the basketball stadium, we start using the battles. When we were in Belfam, when we were in Korfluz, when we were in Yei Battalion, you use it. So we need to really take responsibility of transforming our mind to act as the leaders of a state by the current context of the global setups. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Edmund, for such wonderful analysis on unified graduation forces and their deployment. We have taken much of our time, but we will close it up with the issue of basketball team. Basketball team, Mr. Edmund, has really sent a unique signal within the country, to the region, to Africa, and to the world. Up to now, South Sudanese who are basketball players in Australia, US, Canada, and even Europe are sending their children back home to join South Sudan national basketball team. And the reason is simple, is how these guys are performing and how they are making the country great and proud and stand tall among the nations. What can you say to the government of South Sudan, to the basketball players and practitioners who are currently playing basketball, mostly in Western world, in Australia, where majority of South Sudanese are, and even to the parents? Some of them are here in US, in Canada, in Europe, and in other part of the world. What message do you want to tell them? Also, to those South Sudanese who have long and tall children back home in the villages, who are using them for cattle raiding, for theft, for fight, and for wrestling that is not even beneficial to them. And remember, I have one of the boys from my village. I don't know whether you always follow wrestling. Very tall man, very tall young boy. It's not wrestling. What can you say to these people, to the government of South Sudan? What can government do to empower basketball team or basketball as one of the valuable sport in the region, and alongside athletics, because South Sudanese can run more than Kalenjin of Kenya, can run more than people of Ethiopia. But we are not investing in those areas. And I said in 2013 that if South Sudanese know the meaning of basketball and athletics, these people will be the best in the world. And it is now manifesting itself. And what will you say to the parents in Western world? Thank you, Edmund. And this will be the end of our interview. After you talk or give your remark on that regard, then I will invite you to give your closing remark so that we can allow other people to go and do their business. Thank you so much.
First, I would like to say I feel proud that basketball have shaped the image of our nation. And congratulations goes to every single person that play a role in building that basketball. Even if they have a nurse, if they have somebody who just sit and wash their clothes, all of their actions collectively have made the basketball today that we are proud of in Juba. That's one thing. Two, the basketball have broken the ethnicity loyalty. The names of the players have not denied us the joy. How much the names, you need to take it for political reasons, but all of us as a nation, we stood up, we drive around, we hoot, we joy, we carry the flags. The basketball team have made us carry the meaning of our flag with interest and love, and we wave it. That's one thing that I'd like to say. It has brought the South Sudan that we want, without any affiliations of whatever kind people should have seen, like the way I was seen in ministries. Some ministries are affiliated with ethnic line, but basketball have never been like that. Basketball have told us that if we come together and we pay allegiance to a national principle, we are great people, and we can register a great history that other nations will read about us. Like what I've said before, somebody has to ask me for the meaning of the colors of our flag, simply because he's so motivated by our basketball team. That's one thing that I'd like to bring to the attention, that I'd like to speak to the basketball. How do we do interpretation of this in the political sector of South Sudan? The interpretation of this in the political sector of South Sudan is that, one, our politicians are not yet matured in politics. They are so primitive, they are so self-centered, and they claim that the liberation they fought for have made them as leaders, that they have their own interpretation of what they define as a state processes, rather than really respecting the constitution, respecting the laws. Because this basketball team could have not been great today if they don't respect the rules of the game of the basketball, if they don't respect the ethics of being as a team in the playing pitch of the basketball. But why should our politicians disrespect the purpose of the parliament, council of ministers, ministries, and use it for their personal interest? If the basketball team could have played that I'm from Equatoria, my pass would go to I follow Equatorian in the team, and my Equatorian must score. Or if I'm from Baragazal, I'm from Upper Nile, we do it like the same way how our political parties were established. We would have not reached to the top of the list. This is one thing that I'd like to make interpretation. Two, this politician who used to say, South Sudan is young, we're a youngest country, you must give us opportunity, benefit of that because we are young. Why should the basketball players prove we are not young? We even defeat people who got independence 100 years ago. Yes, the age of the country is young, but the human resource is not young. The human resource is professional. So the basketball have disapproved our politicians who keep on shouting, we are just the youngest country. You cannot compare us with America with the 50 years of democracy. We are the youngest country. You cannot compare us with the rest of the countries in terms of rest of now. A youngest nation basketball players. And I would like to add also, youngest players in terms of the age of the history of South Sudan that we're talking about. Some of them doesn't know this revolutionary history. So that's how I was afraid that they'll be taken to J1 and they'll be taught about Caribino Kwanyi, Ball, William Nyon. Those names will be pronounced. Some of them even have no connections. They know just their name of histories. Some of them are young that even they have never heard of your history, but they care for the country that they found before them. And they play against country. For example, look at Tunisia. I tracked Tunisia when our basketball was playing. Tunisia is one of the countries that government have invested highly on the basketball. And they're paid. Now, if you see, one thing that I like to make some people have to do a research. if anybody have a time, look at the list which was recently displayed where South Sudan is on the top with its 17 points, Egypt and all this. Turn those points against the financial value invested by the government to make those points. You by the way, don't find yourself surprising that you bring South Sudan on the top, on the end of the list in terms of financial value that bring the 17 points ahead there. You'll find some countries have huge investment that has made them at the end of this list. Maybe the last country in this list, the government might have injected huge amount of money, but our government might have injected less amount of money, but we're on the top of the list. Why? Because our players care for the nation. And they believe when they're playing there, they're not playing for tribal interests, they're not playing for self-interest, they're not playing for any regional interest, they're playing for the flag of the country, and they want to make it high. And that's why they succeeded. So it's not a question of about 10 years in governance. You can be even 2 years in governance, and you can be professional. So I like to tell that the political interpreters that our politicians are proved to be liars when they use this language of we're a youngest country, we're a newest country, you need to give us chance to be like democratic like America, you cannot compare to America. Now, let me tell you, this team, if we put them to play against US national team, they will score points with all the democracy. But if we take our politicians and the Council of Ministers or Parliament or Senate, you put them against the American politicians, they'll end up listening. Because those ones will use logics and theories that our players are using the same logics and theories against the national team. But when you take them to the Congress and you put them together, ours will end up having no evidence, having no scientific language, having no proof, emotions, egos, insults. You're idiots, you're stupid. But no, our boys have stand up and say, you see us as a youngest nation, but when come to the scoring and dribbling and putting 3 points to the net, we are matured. Don't undermine us. We are like any other country. So that is a political interpretation. And I don't know how, you know, when they were defeated by Senegal, some of us are saying maybe it's an extension of the virus of our political leaders who sit before them. Because people are like, where were you? You know, why did you come today and you make them to be defeated? But when you play with the DRC Congo, look at those points. So for me, our team have nothing to do with politics. They have nothing to do with ethnicity. They respect the flag. And actually, if I'm asked to define heroes, these are the first live heroes for the Republic of South Sudan. Don't tell me these messing politicians, when they die and we're going to bury them, that we say, these are the heroes of the liberation. Here is the liberation in the pitch. Take the nation to the top list of governance, like the way how our boys have taken. So for me, that's a political interpretation. Now, my message to the current team that has shown, I will tell them honestly, they can change the mindset of South Sudanese. I wish that our government could have a political will. This team should be given chance to tour the 10 states capitals and perform a game because some citizens are not in Juba. They can't reach Juba International Airport. They can't reach air. I will ask the parents of this South Sudanese in the basketball team and the government, and specifically Minister Albino. I'm going to raise him up. I'm going to call him that before this team have a full rest, let them tour the 10 states. You will see the reception. You will see how young people will live restfully. Young people will live cattle raiding. Young people will live being in the streets. And as they go to each state, let them live with them a number of at least 1,000 balls. And leave it, say, Governor, we have brought the balls, we have brought the net. Here we are handing over the transitioning of responsibility from our current generation to generation to come, because we will not be live in the pitch. We have done our part now, but our part we don't want to come to an end before preparing the young generation. Here are the balls. And honestly, if you ask me, as a CEPO, I will dedicate money to buy those balls if the two are in the states. So that at least they go to each state and live, they say, let this be the symbol of the national anthem. Let this be the symbol of coat of arms. Let it be the symbol of our flag. You know, if we can allow them to tour the 10 states within 1 week time, and they leave balls in each state, these politicians will find it very hard to mobilize young people to carry AK-47. They'll find young people are carrying the basketball. This AK-47, they have to find a way. They either decide to go on their own to retire, nobody will go for AK-47. So I think this basketball team have a big responsibility of transforming our society. And I wish that it's not only end up in Juba, they should tour the 10 states capital as a symbol that they're moving, that look here, we are coming from diaspora. the nation is above everything. And here we're visiting in the state and we're living to the boss. Because people in Central Equatorial are enjoying as a capital seat host state in Juba, but others are watching. And I've seen today, when I was coming from Awil, I'm coming to Wow, a car where they just print. I asked them, where do they print papers of our national team, then they fix in the vehicles. Imagine that level of celebrations. If politics would have been like that, I quite sure it would have been the highest position. That's what I will say. And my message to the families, time has come for our families to invest in their children. Their children will invest in building a better nation. These children, these South Sudanese today, the government have not invested. Their parents have invested. They have made their parents high. I'm quite sure the parents of this team, when they see their children carrying the basketball and holding it, the parents are happy. They say, thanks God. If I die, I will die proud because my son have made the nation great. So my message is that to parents, wherever they are, in country, outside country, build your child, invest in your child, being it he or she, since he or she should contribute for the better success of this country to be a great country that cannot be identified with a level of violence, level of corruption, level of lack of adherence to rule of law, human rights violation. No, make them to turn the history opposite. That's what I like to complete. And of course, my concluding message is that politician, shame on you. You keep on saying young nation, but basketball players have said we are a matured nation. And politicians, if we go to the ranking, I was talking to somebody, go to our ranking. Politically, we have ranking for anti-corruption. We are in the below list. Ranking of respecting freedom of expression. We are in the below list. Ranking of the happiest nation. We are in the below list. Even if as a ranking of political practices, we are in the below list. But come to the ranking of basketball performance, we are on the top of the list. So who do we celebrate here? We celebrate the basketball, not politics. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Edmund, for that wonderful analysis and also the message to the parents of these basketball players and message to South Sudanese wherever they are. We need to celebrate people of good deed and people of goodwill. And politicians also need to learn from this team. As you put it correctly, government of South Sudan invested less than $500,000 in that team. And look at the history they have made. They scored more than those countries who their government invested heavily, millions of dollars, if not billions. And some of those teams, especially like Tunisia and Egypt, for the last 5 years, their investment or budget in basketball sport is more than the GDP of South Sudan. And there is a lot of things to learn from our basketball team. Thank you so much for those words. And I'll give you at least 2 minutes to give your last remarks in regard to the unified forces, the basketball team. What are the expectations? Within 2 minutes, your last parting shot. Then we'll close and end our interview, but we will continue talking and discussing more meaningful things for South Sudan benefit. Thank you.
My message is that I wish the unified forces that are going to be graduated, their attitudes, their behaviors, their commitment will be as the same as of our basketball team. Paying allegiance to the nation than to a tribe, and respecting the rules of the game, the way how our basketball team players have respected, should be the spirit in the heart of our unified forces. Don't be a national security officer in order to take away the lives of your own fellow citizen. Don't be a police officer in order to protect your ethnicity. Don't be a military commander in order to sabotage the growth of other people's society because you feel I don't belong to them. the unified forces must show commitment to nationalism, as our basketball team have shown. I have nothing to say. I would say the brand of South Sudan that we won is seen in our basketball team. But for years, over 10 or 11 years, we have never seen that brand in the politics that are practiced by our politicians in their different political colors, in their different political institutions, name it ministries, parliament. We have not seen it. Political gatherings are planning death and looting, but basketball team is planning unification, nationalism, and making the nation great. We have huge billions missing in political events, and less than $1 billion in a basketball team put us on the highest rank of the African countries that are competing for the basketball world. So politically, the country you say is young because you failed, but sports-wise, the young ones have said the country is great, been 11 years, and they have proved it by putting it on the top ranking list on the basketball. I have not much to say. The less, let God bless South Sudan. Let us stand up without any fear and favor as nationalists for the sake of the nation, wherever we are, in whatever we are doing. Don't undermine what you're doing. Whatever you're doing should be amounted to the success and to the future and to the image and to the brand of South Sudan that we want, as our basketball team has proved to us, all of us. And I wish, still I appeal, I wish our basketball team should visit the States and leave basketballs for our nation, so that become a seat of the South Sudan that we want always to be on the top ranking of any list of whatever issues we want to bring. Congratulations to the basketball, but I'd like to say, politicians, pull up your socks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani. To our viewers, thank you so much on behalf of Lagos State Media for always tuning in to come and listen to the perspective and views and thoughts of our guests. We are always grateful for that, and that is what keeps Lagos State moving and inviting guests to come and talk to us simply because of you, our viewers. We really appreciate you wholeheartedly, and may God be with you. To our guest, Mr. Edmund Yakani, thank you so much for always making time despite the challenges on the ground, the lack of bundles, the network irritation, the insecurity, the threat, the lack of freedom of expression. You always raise up above those barriers to come and speak to South Sudanese, give them your perspective, your opinions, and it is up to the citizen to take them the way they are or to analyze them, to take the positive aspect of your discussion. And that is why the African professionals realize your efforts and your sweat and contribution toward the peaceful, devolved, and prosperous South Sudan. We thank you, and thank you will not be enough, but we will always pray to God to keep you in a good health so that you continue talking and continue contributing positively toward the growth of South Sudan. We are really happy for you, my brother, as Lagos State, and to the team and the crew of Lagos State Media, the chairman, Isaac Tiang. Thank you so much for always staying up to late hours in Australia time to make sure Lagos State Media host the guests and move on after the end of the show. I have no word to thank you, but God will reward you for your kindness and for your commitment to see Lagos State Media growing and availing information to the citizen. To our finance secretary, who is the coordinator, Abraham Adin Maja, thank you so much for your coordination and for reaching out to the people that we cannot even be in position to reach to come to Lagos State Media and talk to South Sudanese. To the Deputy President, Bol Makur, thank you so much for your ideas, initiatives, and everything that you do to make sure Lagos State Media grow. To the Information Secretary, Agardeng Mabok, thank you so much. I know you are now watching and it is now late, almost 2 to 3 a.m. morning. And simply because of Lagos State media, you always still stay awake. There is nothing Lagos State can reward you with, but God will reward you so long you are doing something for greater good of our society and for the greater good of your citizen and your fellow kids and your children yet to be born. Up to this juncture, fellow countrymen and women, we are glad, and let's continue talking. We will be inviting more guests to come and talk to us, and Edmund Yakani is always there to come and talk to South Sudanese. May God be with you, may God bless South Sudan, and may God bless Africa.
It's your boy Young Love, I give him that time. Pancho Lagos State, Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Pancho Lagos State, Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Ban walk on the lake, Kankaro, what on the watching, Oga, level leg, gear, pow, very leg, Panda with Yay, Panchi America, Panya Dwalabano, Chingatongo Pandon, could you ever buy a check out, Papu Panda Jiro, what they be Dwalaventing. Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Pancha Lagos State, Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Ban walk on the lake, Kankaro, what on the watching, Oga, level leg, gear, pow, very leg, Panda with Yay, Panchi America, Panya Dwalabano, Chingatongo Pandon, could you ever buy a check out, Paku Panda Jiro, what they be Dwalaventing.